joining me today.
Oh, well, thank you for having me back on, Anna Marie. You look beautiful as always.
Oh, thank you. You're so kind and so intelligent and so
Well,
sweet.
that's you too.
Which is why, we talked earlier about how refreshers are so important
Mhm.
and wanted to use this opportunity to record this podcast to give everyone refreshers on how we can protect our brain, increase blood flow, do the things that are neuroprotective for us. And you have such a great message. And yeah, I just want you to share your knowledge with everyone.
Well, I'm excited. And there's a part of me that wants to turn the tables on you and ask you what you do to take care of your brain health because I know that you are such a proponent of just taking great care of your brain and your body, and you have such advanced knowledge. So before I give some refreshers, tell me one thing that you do every day to take care of your brain health.
Oh gosh, one thing.
I've got to put you on the spot.
Yeah. Honestly, this is so crazy because how I used to be to now, I
Great.
actually take time to just breathe and calm my mind.
Yes.
And like it's literally taking myself from that sympathetic fight or flight to getting into parasympathetic, the rest digest. And
Yes.
I always used to live at such a heightened state that I have a tendency to be like, go, go, go. And I just step back and I have to just say, everything's okay. And when I do that, I stopped attaching meaning to everything, which creates those strong neural pathways. Because when we attach meaning, we attach, usually it's an emotion with that meaning. And so the very things I don't want to worry about or stress about, if they come in, I just like kind of giggle at them. I take a deep breath, I calm myself, and then I let them pass. So in terms of protecting my brain, that monkey mind, I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, we don't do that anymore. So I don't entertain it. I don't let it run wild, which I felt has really protected my brain and actually my body because it keeps me in that more centered homeostasis balance.
Present time consciousness, as we
Hmm.
like to say, instead of worrying about the future or thinking about the
Yeah.
past, you're
Yeah.
just in the here and now where we have access to our infinite wisdom and our sort of the problem solving sort of capacity that we innately have. People I think underestimate the power of the breath to
Oh
calm
yeah.
and center. And I love that you started with this as your sort of brain health hack for people because it is probably one of the least utilized, but
Hmm.
but sort of very necessary components.
Yes, absolutely. Like my son, I dropped off this morning to go on an
Yes.
airplane by himself.
Well, how old is he?
He's 13.
Okay. Oh,
So he's
yes. This is
traveling
big.
alone. He just landed in Phoenix actually before we jumped on. And then he's getting a flight to San Antonio. He's going to be at a personal growth camp for a week.
Wow.
Yeah, I know, right? I'm like, if
Wow,
only
mom, that's
I
very
had
progressive.
I had access to that when I was a kid. But
Right.
like I would normally like it's like okay, like there's all these worries I could worry
Yes.
about, but I just
Mhm.
have to trust and just breathe that everything's going to be fine. Like really, because I've had
Everything.
so many people be like, "Oh my gosh, you're letting your son travel on his own," and like, just all the
Oh,
work around it.
well, I will tell you, you're talking to the child of an airline pilot. So my father was a
Oh,
pilot
that's
for
right.
Pan American. So he flew 747s all over the world. And I'll never forget, my mom put me on an airplane by myself. I want to say when I was 7 or 8, I was fairly young.
Hmm.
And I was so excited because the flight attendants, when they know they've got a
Oh, they
young
hook you up.
passenger, oh, they take care of you. You get your little wings, and
Uh-huh.
she had sent me to go see her sister. We were living in Chicago and her sister was in Erie, Pennsylvania. And I would go there for summer camp. We called it
Oh,
Camp Ferncliff because she lived on the water and there was all kinds of fun things to do. But my mom, of course, was a nervous wreck, just like you. But I made it safely to the other
Yeah.
side and had a blast. And so, but what you're talking about, we have worries. I mean, my God, we have thousands of thoughts in a day,
Hmm.
thousands of choices that we make in a day.
Hmm.
Um, so when we get into that space of worry, to take the breath and center is really smart.
Yes. Yeah. It's the ultimate biohack because our brain is literally the strongest pharmacy on planet Earth. So
It
here.
really is. And for the listeners, so I used to work at the Amen Clinics, which is a very well-known psychiatric clinic in the United States, and we used brain imaging to help target and treat people with psychiatric disorders. Um, okay, so now you have the preamble. So Dr. Amen, the owner of this clinic, at that time, I think we had 6 or 7 clinics, 150 employees. And what I loved about him, because I was his research director, I was in his office every single day. And before we'd start our meetings, he was so cute. He would sit there and he'd close his eyes and he'd take a deep breath and he'd hold his hands out like this and he'd just go and quietly just take the deep breath. And then he'd go, "Good morning.
Oh,
How are
I
you today?" And it calms the mind, it calms the heart rate, it calms the blood pressure. And he would always start from that space of calm. So
yeah.
just to extend that point, um, yeah, it's a great brain health.
And just by him doing that, it helps. Like when you did that, that helped calm me. It's like, isn't
Did
that called
it?
like neuro
It's like
or mirroring?
synchronization. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
attunement. It's almost like you're
Yeah.
attuning to the same space that that
Yeah.
person is in, and you're attuning to that calmer or grounded place.
Mhm.
And when we're calm and grounded, we can actually access sort of our highest mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
So
then you
good.
don't have to worry.
Yes. And I think too, like me staying in that calm space, like
Yeah.
for my son. So for any parents or grandparents out there, aunts, uncles, when we have children, and I mean, whether it be employees, your
Yeah.
team, your research team, or even like kids are so much more heightened and anxious these days. I've been experiencing that more and more as I see children. And just you calming yourself
Yes.
helps protect them and calm them. And I think we forget about that. Like we really,
Parents,
yeah.
yeah, you underestimate the power of your calm
Hmm.
positively influencing your children's calm,
Yeah.
and sense of just peace. And, sort of as we're talking about brain health, one of the things that parents can do in the home to keep that calm environment is to play either classical music
Mm.
or sort of, I mean, now there's all sorts of things that you can get on the internet and CDs that would have music that could put you or your children into either an alpha state, which is relaxed and calm. So if your breath isn't quite doing it, because some people who are anxious try
Yeah.
to do it, they might go,
Yeah.
I've seen people try to breathe like that and they're like, it's like the very sort of forced breath. But you can use music in your home to calm the mind and put it into that alpha brainwave state, which
Mm.
is the same state that we get in when we're relaxed and focused. Or for those who choose to meditate, you go into that alpha state, which is where you're more creative. Again, you can access your highest wisdom. What is beautiful, if you play this music, even on level 1, so you could have it traveling throughout your home and you may not be able to hear it,
Hear
but
it.
the
Yeah.
frequency is still
Yeah.
traveling through your home. So if you're a mom who's got the anxious kiddos and you're trying to figure out what you can do to calm the whole house down,
Mm.
try that technique. And you could have it on your computer, get it through your computer and have it go through the home. Or I would do it in the clinical space, when I would have to see 5 or 6 patients in a row in a
Yeah.
psychiatric clinic where we see patients with anxiety, depression, bipolar disorder, schizoaffective disorder, PTSD. You sort of have this sort of rolling out of people with these various issues in the mind, and they're coming into the space in my environment. So I would always have the music on, playing so low that they wouldn't be able to detect it. I had a little bit of aromatherapy going. I put a diffuser behind a plant that I had in the office. So you couldn't see it, but I might have a little bit of lemon or
Mhm.
citrus, something
Yes,
very pleasant, but
absolutely.
not overpowering. So you walked in and it was very subtle. I might dilute it to the point where, it was barely detectable, but a pleasant scent. And I would just set the environment and the space so people could come in and relax. And then when they left and I'd have the next anxious person in my office, they would go, "Oh, it's
Yes.
so peaceful in here."
Yes. I just love that because that's just such those are 2 simple hacks, and
Simple.
I feel so lucky because, happy holy you, I'm in my
Happy
office
holy
right
you.
now.
Yes,
And when
with
my
your
door is
crystals.
yes,
I
and when my
love.
door is open, we have essential oils.
Yeah,
It's a light citrusy type of vibe like you just talked about, and
right.
we have some spa kind of binaural beat music playing that
Yeah,
would be of love and compassion. It's
yes.
just in the background. I t Every single person that walks in that door, brand new, the first thing they say is, "Oh, I just feel so calm," or "Smells so good in here." And it's like, I don't know why more doctors' offices don't do that. Like, I remember when
Well,
I saw a psychiatrist for the first time, when I went through my whole brain issue, it was,
yeah,
like, dark and dingy, and it was not inviting, it was not calming, you felt like you were in
right.
a dungeon, and it's like, these are just simple things.
This is showing the awakening and the evolution of our consciousness. I will tell you to that point, when I started taking our dog in to get his teeth cleaned, there was a place here in Los Angeles called Green Dog Dental. And I walked him in, and it was the whole spa environment. They had the beautiful music, they had the misters going, and they would take the dogs in the back and give them acupressure
Yeah,
before they would then open their mouth and use the very sharp tools. And, for a lot of people who have doggos, sometimes they need to be anesthetized to be able to
mhm,
get the teeth cleaning every 6 months. And, I'm not a big fan of anesthetizing the dogs. Just you think about the long-term impacts on cognitive health
yeah,
and their very short lifespan. So because they created that environment for him, he was a Jack Russell Terrier. Those are very anxious dogs. Um, he would calm down and would be able to get his procedure done without anesthesia. Now, it doesn't work all the time, but
yeah,
again, that was just an application that we use for pets. So, to your point, more the doctor's offices, start to employ these sort of things. I know they feel very new agey to certain people, and the traditional medical establishment likes to keep a very sterile environment. But I think there's areas where we could soften that. Even
yeah,
the lighting in your home, right? Instead of
mhm,
having the bright fluorescent light bulbs, which again, that's a visual, something coming into our visual centers and can be overly stimulating. There are light bulbs that you can put in, the softer bulbs, the ones that mimic outdoor light, which
mhm,
I would
yes,
recommend putting in your home. So look, here we are, I'm talking about brain hacks, and I'm not talking about hydration and the Mediterranean diet and intermittent fasting and getting a great sleep. I'm actually talking about really underutilized tools that can
mm,
completely change your environment and calm you. And a calm brain is going to extend your health span and your lifespan.
yes, absolutely, yeah, and the lighting thing is huge, and, we have all dimmable lights throughout
Yeah, The
you.
dimmables are great.
Yeah, and in some rooms, we just have the lights off and we'll have a salt lamp or, very low lighting. And in my house, when we just got our kitchen redone and all that,
Yeah,
I'm like, I want dimmable. And so they did all the dimmable lights and it makes a huge difference, especially when you're getting ready for bed, you just finished
right.
dinner, turn the lights down
Lights
a
down.
little bit, set the
It's
mood.
perfect. I know my husband loves that too, after we have dinner. So we do early dinners now. I mean, I guess I have COVID to thank for that because I used to never cook. So now I cook our dinner around 5:36. We've eaten by 7. You dim the lights
Hmm.
so that your body can start to shift from the beta brainwave state, which we're in most of the day, which we
Yep.
need for
Hmm.
focusing. It's a very high energy state to that sort of quieter, lower energy state. And it's just a nice transition. So we don't have to use our supplements and medications as much. We can just use our environment to help
Yeah.
shift us, naturally into that quieter space to get that deep restorative sleep. So I love the dimmable lights. Again, these are great brain hacks. they're
Yeah.
they're
Yes.
simple.
Yes. Oh, I love it. So, all right. So environment, I think, just pointing out, and we've
Yes.
established environment is like everything and these hacks that you can do for your environment to protect your brain, to have better brain health. And so, what are some other things that you do that maybe people aren't really thinking
Thinking
about?
about,
Yeah, or
yeah,
underutilized, because like you said, like, we've talked about Mediterranean diet before, we've talked about
yes,
sleeping, we've talked about all that stuff, which those
right.
of you that, I was gonna look before and I didn't do that, so I apologize, I'll put it in the show notes, but the episode you were on before this, because I think this is gonna be episode 130 for us.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you, and I
It's
think you were
amazing.
the last time I interviewed you, I wanna say it was in the first 50 episodes.
Wow.
So yeah, so you guys have to go back and listen to Dr. Willumier's first interview on the podcast where we talk about her book, Biohack Your Brain. It's an amazing book, by the way. It's a great resource. So
Thank
definitely you can get it on
you.
Target, Amazon, wherever. Grab that book because you also have listed in there, I think it's like 10 hacks. It's like right in the beginning of the book.
Yes, it's
And
the
so good.
first, yeah, the first chapter. I talk about 10 very quick ways you can biohack your brain on a
Yes.
daily basis, right? Because we think about our checklist. Again, my father being a pilot, whenever you fly the
Yeah.
plane, you've got the checklist. So this is sort of a daily checklist you can do, and it's simple things. Like I talk about having a bowl of blueberries or a
Mhm.
bowl of fruit that's high in
That's my hack.
antioxidants.
That's
That's
one
a
of my
beautiful. I
eating
can
hacks. I do
can I
blueberries literally like 4 times a week, at least.
have
I
my
love it.
blueberries right
Yes,
here.
yes.
This morning, and I will tell you, you already know this, but I'll tell your listeners. So every morning, I make a green juice for myself, or I have one. I do Instacart, and I have it brought in from the Robux or the Whole
Mhm.
Foods. Um, but really, one of my favorite brain hacks has been drinking a fresh, organic green juice. And when I say greens, think celery, spinach, cucumber, and then
Mhm.
I'll add either a pear or a green apple. So I add one fruit because it tastes so good.
Yeah,
But I use that to hydrate my brain, right? First thing I get up and I do that. I don't drink coffee. I never have. I grew up with a mother who drank it every day and I made it for her. So maybe
no.
I just I've never gravitated towards coffee. And then working in a brain imaging clinic, one of the first things that we tell patients is you cannot have caffeine before you come in for a brain scan. So
Yeah,
that's no chocolate, no soda, no tea, um, no coffee. And why is that? Because it's a vasoconstrictor, so it constricts your blood vessels, and that's not going to give us sort of the best picture of your brain health. And one of the things that I've learned, in doing brain imaging is that a cup of coffee is fine per day, but when you start to have multiple cups, it's
yeah.
not again, we were talking about anxiety and ways to reduce stress, that releases cortisol and epinephrine, so your stress levels go up. I know people love coffee, but I think for this podcast, I want to see if I can inspire people to start the day with the green juice,
I love.
right? The hydration piece, and why the juice versus just water. So I think the water is great as well.
Mhm.
Um, but you've got living enzymes in there, and enzymes are like the spark plugs for all of the cells of your body. You've got the antioxidants, which protect the neurons in your brain, right? And as we age, anybody over the age of 40, the brain starts shrinking. You just lose brain volume and neurons over
Yeah.
time. So that to me is one of the best preventative ways. You've got the antioxidants that protect the neurons from dying. Um, so to just do that, whether you order it or you make it yourself, I do 16 ounces. I've done it for 25 years. Started
Wow.
doing it, and I think talked about it on the last episode. The reason why I started green juicing is back when I was a basic scientist working in a laboratory and had to keep neurons alive, in a dish for a month to do
Mhm.
experiments. Neurons are metabolically active, the neurons of your brain. So they release lactic acid and metabolic waste, and you need to flush that out, right? That's why we drink fluids throughout the day, to
Mhm.
flush out the metabolic waste. Or if we exercise and we create all this metabolic waste, you need to drink fluids afterwards. Um, so I would have to exchange the media that these cells would sit in, from the acidic media to what we'd call a more alkaline media. um, the pH was, my gosh, I don't remember, it was definitely like 7.2, 7.4. And then I saw, when I changed the media, the neurons in the dish would sprout.
Oh, wow.
The axons and the dendrites would sprout, and they'd make more connections with their neighboring cells. And that's what kept them alive, was the continued recycling, taking out the acidic metabolic waste water and putting in the high alkaline, nutrient dense water. So I think, sort of intuitively, I just started picking up, oh, I have to drink more fluids, and the green juicing is alkaline, and
It's alive.
supplements like
Yeah.
spirulina, which
Yeah.
I love it, they're living nutrients. So
Mhm.
that's just my little plug for people who, if you love coffee, anybody who has more than one cup of coffee, I try to say pair a green juice with each additional cup. So if you have 2 to 3 or 4 cups, just see if you can't also add the juice in, because um, coffee, if you have a lot of acidic foods, not just coffee, but eat a
Yeah.
high protein diet, um, over time, as we age, you might start to leach minerals from your bones to
Mhm.
help keep the pH of the blood balanced. So one of the best ways to combat that is just a green juice every day. You're replenishing and remineralizing,
Mhm.
so that you don't need to actually leach those from the bones, and you don't have osteoporosis. So I know you get what I'm saying.
I love it.
It's the little,
No, it's
I'm
so
doing sort of the
important.
bigger pitch, not just for the brain, but for the body and in the
Yeah.
long term
Yeah.
health.
No, I love that. And that's, you shouldn't take your vitamins with coffee, and there's all these different
No,
little hacks. And so when I redid my kitchen, a few years
congratulations.
ago, thank you. I
That's a
waited
big
10 years,
endeavor.
10 years to do it. I love it. It's beautiful.
Oh.
I cook way more in it, and I feel so fortunate.
Well, they
And
say, isn't that the heart of your home? Your kitchen is the heart
yes,
of your home.
yeah,
So you've
absolutely.
created that beautiful environment.
Yes. So during that time, and this is a little hack for everybody out there, I juiced as well,
Yeah.
and I didn't have a sink, I didn't have a kitchen. So I looked up a local juice company,
Yes.
and ever since then, every Wednesday they deliver me juices. I drink them. Usually they say, you drink them within 24 hours, but I drink them
Yeah.
within 3 days.
They're,
And I get like 7 32-ounce juices, and
yes.
I share them with the family. And it is like, literally, for what it cost me to get all the stuff I was doing and my time and the
Yes.
cleanup, I've just stuck with it. And it's local, they locally source it, it's organic. And so I encourage everyone out there, if juicing is like, oh gosh, I don't know, find a local owned small
Yes.
business juice company and
Yes,
see if
please.
you can work out a deal for weekly juices with them. And trust me, I mean, I feel like I get a gift every single week, and now we sell them here at the center.
You're so smart.
It's
I
so
will
great.
tell you, one of the, I work with a bunch of clients and patients, and I have a machine where I can do biofeedback with people. And there's somebody that I'm working with who, has issues with anxiety and stress. But every time I put him on the biofeedback machine, he actually has a beautiful tone. Like everything is very balanced. And so I started digging in a little deeper because I'm like, I typically don't see this in people. What are you doing? And he does everything from saunas and cryotherapy and
Mhm.
IV, vitamins, and he takes the nutritional supplements I've recommended. Um, and he also does the juicing. He was so excited to be like, okay, this is what I do every day. Here's my juice. And I said, again, working at the Amen Clinics, I've seen thousands of brain scans. I understand most people, there's a lot of people would be well served to sort of relook at their brain health habits and take better care of their brain health. Most people will never look at their brains. I get that until they have a degenerative disease
Right.
process or a neurologist says, we need to do some kind of scan. I'm I have just been in a unique position where I've been able to look at the electrical activity of people's brains, the functional activity, the MRIs, the diffusion tensor imaging. So I see what's going on under the surface, like what a lot of people don't see. And to see that somebody has utilized all of these very accessible things that you can do, the juicing, the sauna, the cryotherapy, and to see how well their body has responded. And it's not typical for me to put somebody on the biofeedback machine and see sort of all of the organs are in a place of homeostasis. And I said, just keep doing what you're
Yeah,
doing
don't
because
change
we
anything.
can work on the brain. I mean, we've got
Mhm.
neurofeedback, we've got so many different ways, to help. But the readout to me was the body was responding very positively to the things he was doing. And I do feel like that juice piece, the fresh organic juice, and hey, if you don't want the greens, please by all means add the blueberries in. Like find something that you love and stick with
Yeah.
it.
Mhm.
To your point, and even with me, if I get really busy, my husband has always said, your time is money. If you need to Instacart it to get it here so that
Yeah.
you're drinking it, by all means. But,
Yeah.
I also invested in a Breville juicer from
Oh,
Amazon.
yeah.
I want to say it's like $80. It's not that
Mhm.
expensive.
Yeah.
So
It's
I
great.
can make them on my own.
Yeah.
And so if I were to encourage people to pick up one brain health habit, and if you only did this and nothing else, like I said, I've been doing it 25 years. I'm 50 now and I love it.
And you
And
look 30.
you look 30. So I, I say that because I actually think it's a really smart thing to do for hydration, for your brain health, you know,
Mhm.
and again, along with all these other little things we've just discussed. So that's one of my favorites.
Yes. Oh, yeah, juicing hands down is so good, and, also with juice, it's actually stage 4 of water, which has
Yeah.
been shown to truly hydrate, and again, you have all the minerals, and it's alive, and it's
Well,
so good.
that's the
So,
difference because
yeah.
sometimes people are drinking water and they don't feel hydrated, and you need to have a little bit of the sugar. There are receptors on our cells that have what are called glucose transporters. You actually need the sugar to get the minerals into the cells. That's why Gatorade is such a popular drink at sporting events. If you notice, you don't see big pictures of water. Like they don't
Yeah.
have big vats of like, water. Well, they do have water there, but it's Gatorade because you need
Yeah.
to have the combination of a little bit of sugar with the minerals. So
Mhm.
what's, the natural Gatorade is fresh green
Yes.
juices that are organic. And to your point with the organic, so I studied Parkinson's disease. I used to study the impact of pesticides on neuronal health. and I had a father who passed with Parkinson's. So I will use this as, the opportunity to share. If you can buy organic, I really recommend it, even if you have to buy frozen organic, which is cheaper.
Yeah.
In the long run, because we're talking about habits you're doing every single day that are a force multiplier over decades,
Mhm.
um, the choice to do organic will be of high value for your long-term brain health.
Yeah.
Don't underestimate the value of investing in organic. And again, I know it's a little more expensive, but in my mind, the foods that you put in your body, the water, the foods, the quality of foods, the
Mhm.
timing of when you eat is all very important.
Yes, yes. And I was at Costco yesterday. I'm a big
Oh,
fan
there
of
you go.
Costco with their organic.
Yes.
And it was organic blueberries was 5.99, and then
What?
non-organic was 5.49. I'm like literally. So the
Yeah.
depending on the season, because blueberry season is coming in. My sister actually owns a blueberry farm.
Oh, I think you told me that. I
Yes.
wish I could can I order from her?
Yes. So she'll freeze them, which also, like you
Yes.
said, frozen blueberries actually have a higher antioxidant rate because they have that
They
stress.
flash freeze, don't they?
Yes.
So they
Yes.
get them right, they freshly pick them, and if you
Mhm.
flash freeze,
Mhm. It
that's the way to
stresses the
preserve.
berry.
Mhm.
Yes. So, yeah, so I am like, so frozen or fresh, I feel like the gap of organic versus non-organic and the cost difference isn't
Is
what it was. And if you're
closing.
buying in season, you're going to actually, just rotate your foods to the organics, what's in season too, and you're going to end up saving quite a bit. And you can buy fresh organic and then freeze them if you really need to.
Yes,
But again, the option of buying frozen organic is already here, which is it's
it's
just great.
amazing.
Things are so accessible. You just have to
They
be
are.
know and look for it, right? It's education first.
Right.
Once we're educated, then we're like, oh, okay, I never thought to go buy frozen organic blueberries or frozen organic cherries, which is my new favorite little
Favorite, or
thing.
frozen
Oh,
organic mangoes.
yeah.
Even like having those as little as snacks for
Mhm.
kids are
Oh, yeah.
great. It's, you know, I think that's one of the great things that I've learned being in this field. Like, there's so much that we don't know. Even
Mhm.
I'm continually
Oh,
evolving and
every day,
learning and
right?
upgrading, and because it's fun.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, as I get older, I realize, okay, I've got to preserve every neuron. I've always told people every neuron is precious. I mean, now you're talking to a neurobiologist who
Mhm.
studied these neurons, these beautiful, beautiful cells in the brain. And the reason why it's so important to do this now, I talk about this in the book. I mean, you can change your brain at any age. We
Yes.
had people who were in their 80s and 90s who would come into the clinic, get scanned, and we could still make improvements to their brain function, to blood flow to the brain. And again, it's doing simple things like cleaning up your diet,
Mhm.
bringing the amount of sugars down in your diet. That's when I taught the brain directed weight loss group, one of my favorite things to do with people for a week was track the amount of sugar that you're
Oh,
consuming just for a week. Literally just look at your label. It tells you how many grams of sugar that you're taking in per day, um, or you're taking in per serving. And I sort of had a rule for people. I said, if it had more than 5 grams of sugar per serving, put it back.
yeah.
Um, and what you want to do, if anybody who's listening, if you want to challenge yourself on how to be brain healthy, try to keep your sugar consumption to between 25 grams to 35 grams per day, which is it's very difficult to do that. The
Mhm.
average person's taking in about 90 to 100 grams per day when you look at the fruits. Now, fruits are the good sugars, so don't knock yourself. You have
Yeah.
to count them, but they're still the good sugars. But look at everything and just see if you can set the goal of bringing the sugars down, because healthy glucose utilization is so important for the brain. Like, you want sugars, but you want them to
Right.
be the healthy, clean kind. When you have too much processed foods and high amounts of sugar from sodas and cookies and cakes and breads and pastas, which are
And condiments. That's where a lot of
condiment.
people don't realize, like,
Condiments,
ketchup, barbecue sauce, like, you
how
have a
about
literally a
salad dressing?
salad dressing, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, so
So
it's
track the
definitely
sugar and see if you can't, if you're taking in 75 grams a day, see if you can't get it to 50.
mhm,
um, because the sugar, think of sugar, it like crystallizes and it makes your blood thick and viscous and it damages cells over time.
mm,
So it's just having too much sugar in the diet. If you're thinking about how do I protect my brain health for a lifetime, besides drinking your green juices, if we can bring the sugars down, I think that's
so
really,
valuable.
yeah, it's
Yep,
really helpful because we know how to support our brain health is exercising every day. Exercising and new learning are sort of two of the great ways to keep it um, protected. Why exercise? Because exercise boosts blood flow
yep,
right throughout the brain, 400 miles of blood vessels in the brain alone. And, we want good blood flow, lots of oxygen coming to the brain, nutrients carried away. And that was one of the big things I learned working at the Amen clinics. Most people do not have adequate perfusion to the brain. And they don't know that until they get
mhm,
scanned, but
right,
and that can be from anything from exposure to toxic mold. It can be from alcohol. It can be from traumatic brain injuries, even mild ones. If you
mm,
participate in collision-based sports and you're sort of shearing and tearing the very delicate neuronal structures over time, right? That can lead to low blood flow. Um, so there's a myriad of reasons why you might have had Lyme's disease. Some sort of infections can have impacts on blood flow to the brain, and you don't know that. But what's the number one way to help support great blood flow? Getting out and exercising every day. Even if it's 30 minutes, it can be power walk, it can be 40 minutes of power walking.
mhm,
One of the,
yeah,
and I've got to give my little, God, as a research scientist, I thought this was the coolest study. And this is just advocating for those of you who aren't like the hardcore, I'm going in to get my hour run every
yeah,
day or a workout. There was a study done um, in they called them older adults. That was between the ages of 50 to 80. So I guess that's me. I don't, now that I'm 50, I'm like one of the older adults. Um, but what they did was measure hippocampal volume in the brain. So the hippocampus is the area of the brain involved in learning and memory. It helps us with our long-term memory storage. So anything that we learn during the day, when we sleep at night, the hippocampus is processing and taking all of that information and storing it into long-term memory storage. Um, as we get older, the hippocampal volume sort of naturally declines with age. And when we get, into 60s, 70s, and 80s, you get about a 1% change in hippocampal volume. So it starts to shrink. And why do I keep talking about this? So for some people who have Alzheimer's disease, we will have you get an MRI and we'll look at your hippocampal volume and we'll compare it to a normal group and say, how much has it shrank? It just helps us, see if your Alzheimer's is again due to the loss of that brain tissue. So the study found, okay, right, as we advance in age, every year you might lose 1% of that volume. But if you do 40 minutes of aerobic activity, and this is just power walking, over the course of the year, the hippocampal volume grew by 2%.
oh, that's yeah,
And
that's
that was versus people who just did stretching and toning. So again, as people get older, they kind of stop doing aerobic exercise, but they might stretch or do something light. Those people still had the decrease in volume. So again, a little pitch for brain health. If you can't exercise, most people can walk,
mhm,
right? And if you can't walk, because I have some people who can't do that, there are these cuffs that you can get that squeeze the blood in the legs. So remember, if you get a surgical procedure now in the
yeah,
operating
we have
room,
some
you've
of
got the cuffs.
similar something similar, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So, even if you can't do the walking because you have peripheral neuropathy, or I mean, everybody's at different stages in their life, you can even get the cuffs that will squeeze your legs and help to keep blood flowing throughout your body. So
Yeah, there's always a way.
there's always a way.
There's always a way. I think
Yeah,
we need to start looking at what we can do
right.
versus focusing on what we can't do.
Right. There's
So important.
always something, even people that I work with who have dementia, we've been able to improve blood flow to their brain and still sort of slow down the progressive course. And I think that's what's so exciting. We're
Mhm.
at a time where, you know, instead of going, oh my gosh, I'm getting older, it's inevitable, my brain is going to go into decline. I've seen it's just the opposite. There's still things we can do to restore, repair, and preserve as we
Yeah.
age.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, we
Yeah.
just need to make it socially acceptable to be healthy. We've made it
Yeah.
socially acceptable to say, "Oh, yeah, well, I'm getting older." Well,
I
okay.
know.
So,
So we're now going to start seeing, I think, longer health spans and lifespans. I think the
yeah,
average age now is 79 in the US. So um, I say I think we can challenge that,
yeah,
right? And see more centenarians, more healthy people living longer, healthier, happier,
for
whole
sure.
lives.
Yeah, it's like those people that live in the blue zones that hit, 100,
Yes,
those centurions. They're they hit that age not just because of the food and the relationships they have, but they're active.
they're
They're actively
outdoors.
moving, they're gardening,
Yes.
they're hiking, they're literally doing stuff to increase that blood flow to the brain, and moving their body. And so, yeah,
Well,
so
they're connected to their environment. Yeah, everybody who lives in the blue zone seems to really have a connection to the land, a connection to their families. And, a lot of those people are living very simple lifestyles. It
yeah,
doesn't have to be fancy. You don't have to have all of the crazy biohacking
right.
equipment that people talk about. That, yes, we have in the clinical setting. I mean, we have it there for people who need it. But I
Yeah,
think there's a lot of healing properties just by you know, going out. We've got 100 plants at our house, cactus and things, and I am officially the chief landscape officer. So what do? I'm out there, every 2 days they need to be watered. We're always changing things in the garden, and that's so much fun.
yes.
So that's as much as important your brain health equation as all of the other things we've discussed. So it's almost like tailor something that works for you.
Mhm.
And then if you have more questions, you reach out to us,
Yes.
right? So we can help you strategize how to be even, have greater brain health and
Yeah,
take better care of your brain health as you
yeah.
age.
Yeah, how to optimize your environment and how to optimize your brain because everybody's brain's a little bit different. So,
Oh, everybody's brain is different.
yes.
Yes, it is for sure. But yeah,
Oh, I love it. Well, thank you, Dr. Kristen Willeumier, so much for joining us. And I'm just so grateful for your knowledge and your time. And thanks for coming on today.
I loved it. I loved it. I love it. Thank you so much for the invitation to come back. I'm just so proud of you and all of the wonderful things that you're doing. And if I can ever be of support to you,